everyone, and welcome to the Tavern. I'm the Dapper Bard, and today we are talking about Wizards of the Coast, because yes, there's another controversy. It seems the more things change, the more things stay the same. And while there are some changes going on with WotC, it feels like none of these changes are for a positive. If anything, we're going towards even darker times. Today we're going to talk about something that's very close to my heart, YouTubers getting screwed over. For those who don't know, I had a channel way before this, back in the 2010s, that got screwed over by a major company and ceased to exist. In fact, you can find none of my videos online from that channel. I was just an angry reviewer, which was the style at the time, and I'm glad I've moved away from that, and instead I'm yelling about something completely different. So, without further ado, let's talk a little bit about what's been going on behind the scenes of WotC before we get into today's main topic. As a fun follow-up from a previous video, Kyle Brink is no longer with Wizards of the Coast. As a reminder, Kyle Brink was the guy who went out and became the public face of Wizards of the Coast after the OGL controversy. His goal was to try to smooth things over with fans, and if possible, win more people over to Dungeons & Dragons. Instead, he basically insulted white people, amongst others, in his quest to appear super woke and progressive. It was as cringy as it sounds, and WotC is better off not having this loser involved with their company. That being said, I didn't do a video celebrating his removal because the information as to why he was removed is very vague. I don't know if he left the company because he saw the sinking ship that he was on, and like any smart rat, jumped off the boat and swam for shore, or if he was fired due to his massive amount of incompetence. Either way, I don't know what it is. That really limits what I can say about the subject. However, I like to view this as a win, but sadly, it's a Pyrrhic victory at best, because things of WotC aren't getting better just because he's gone. If anything, a brand new acquisition might just make things worse. John Haidt is now the president of Wizards of the Coast. John Haidt is best known for working with Blizzard Entertainment. He was involved with World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, and a bunch of other games, most of which were very popular, though haven't been quite as popular in recent years. Bringing in someone who is used to working in the digital space and with video games seems right on course for the way that WotC's been moving towards a more digital-based tabletop environment. He was obviously brought in to bring in the next generation of gamers into the tabletop world via the digital space. However, while reading up on John Haidt, I learned something I was unaware of that completely changes part of my point of view about Hasbro. Chris Cox, the man who is most responsible for pushing AI and has said some very controversial things about Wizards of the Coast, turns out he was the president of Wizards of the Coast. For years now, I've had people say, well, it's Hasbro that's the evil one, and Wizards of the Coast is just following orders like a good soldier. The person in charge of Hasbro used to be part of WotC. That means it isn't Hasbro ruining Dungeons & Dragons, it's Dungeons & Dragons ruining Hasbro. God, no wonder we can't get decent toys nowadays. We have someone who doesn't care about toys. Someone who just wants to monetize everything, drain your pocketbook until it's dry, discard you, and find the next victim to drain the money out of. Hasbro isn't the bad guy here. WotC is. Well, actually, Hasbro's pretty evil too. In fact, they're both pretty darn evil at this point. But what I'm trying to say is that the infection started in WotC and moved to Hasbro, not the other way around. Getting back to the point I was trying to make with this background segment, is that the OGL had a section that was built around digital gaming. One of the core components of this was controlling what could be done in a virtual tabletop. Had the OGL gone through, this could have screwed over a lot of different groups that have digital tabletops. Or more likely, it would force players who want to play Dungeons & Dragons to play specifically on D&D Beyond and ignore all potential competitors. You add the fact that there's been discussion about AI DMs and about digital-only releases, And you can see how bringing in someone like John Haidt would tie directly into that. The future of D&D is digital, which granted, not everyone is against. But I would point out, that means you don't own those dice. You don't own those minis. You don't own those books, because WotC can take them away from you, change them, or force you to pay an even higher subscription in order to keep them, because that's what they want. They want to control the gaming space, and with digital, you can. More than that, the more digital things go, the more you lose the interactive experience between players, which is part of the fun of playing tabletop, is meeting new people or creating new people to roleplay as. If I wanted to just run around and stab things in a dungeon, I have plenty of video games to do that. I play tabletop in order to interact with the other players. Whether it's something like Battletech, where it's trying to out-strategize each other, or it's a more cooperative effort like a dungeon crawl or some sort of adventure. And we're losing that with digital, which I know some people don't care about, but for people like me, it cuts off one of my primary ways of having social interactions. Which brings me to the new D&D Beyond, which has been restricting more and more aspects of your account unless you have the subscription. This allows WotC to have more control over what you play and how you play. Not only that, but they can see your homebrews. They can see your character concepts. And they can take those. Because if you don't think there isn't some wording in the license agreement that says all that stuff, that's technically ours, and you can't sue us if we use your stuff, which also, by the way, had wording like that in the new OGL, they watch what you do. They take it and sell it back to you at a premium. Now, obviously, there are people who are angry about this, and bad press is one thing WotC is trying to avoid. But before I get into that, let's have a word from our sponsor. And this is totally a real ad, I promise. Tired of your dad's old D&D? Tired of rolling dice like a chump? Tired of minis you have to paint? Tired of books that weigh a ton? Forget that! It's all about digital! Hell yeah! Hello fellow kids, I'm here to tell you about D&D Beyond, the ultimate service for all your digital gaming needs. Books are heavy, plastic is expensive, instead just buy it all online. And don't read that licensing agreement, bro, because Wizards doesn't want you to know that they can change, alter, or remove anything at any time. Instead, focus on how cool these 3D maps look. Focus on the fact that even though you have no friends, you can have virtual friends. We will make you AI companions with personalities that are so realistic, you'll assume you actually met them at the game store. And if that's not enough, we have characters from that movie nobody saw. We got characters from that game everyone played, but now almost no one talks about. We have all sorts of cool stuff, and it's all digital, bro. It's all gonna be microtransactions and stuff. You want loot boxes? We'll give you loot boxes. Hell yeah. You want more? There's more. In fact, if you want to be the coolest kid on your block, you go and use the new promo code DAPPER5 for 5 cents off your first week. Yeah, that's a whole nickel. Get a nickel off your first week of D&D Beyond, because that's where the real players are at. Don't stop now. Go. Spend your money. Give it all to them. Come on, bro. What are you waiting for? Raid Shadow Legends to have a discount? Forget that. It's all about the biggest thing in the world. D&D for all the hip kids like you. Because this is the peak fire of tabletop, bro. So check it out, because if you don't, you're just gonna be lame. And you don't want to be lame. You want to be cool like me. So check out D&D Beyond. And people say I'm not funny in my videos. Anyhow, back to topic, which that ad had absolutely nothing to do with emphasizing what I'm about to talk about. The 2024 core rulebook has basically been released. 5.5, as most everyone is calling it nowadays, because they wanted to get rid of the 1D&D name because nobody liked 1D&D. Now, generally, what I saw in the playtests was a weird mix of good and bad, but what it really told me was the compatibility between 5.5 and 5.0 is gonna be rough. Now, I haven't read the book, and while I have looked at a few reviews, well, as it turns out, 5.5 is awesome, because those are the only reviews that are allowed to be online. Anyone who disagrees with WotC, they're gone. So to clarify, basically a bunch of YouTubers who weren't approved by WotC got copyright strikes for talking about the book, which is highly messed up. Now, Some of those reviews were kind of mid, and some of those reviews were negative, but it wasn't like the reviews were over-the-top rage. At least, as far as I understand it, I can't watch everybody's review, I don't have enough time to do that. But what I have noticed is it seems to be a trend of the positive, they could hang out, and the negative, they could go away. Which is something I experienced with my old channel. Because when I was negative about something, God knows that video would get strikes against it, but if I was ever positive about something, or a company was super chill, they let that video slide. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. This is abusing the copyright system in order to control what reviews are out there. On the note of just YouTube stuff I do, I was not planning on doing a review of 5.5. Even if Luffy stopped by and handed me a copy of the book, I'm not entirely certain I would actually go through it. Primarily because I don't like reviewing a rule set that I'm not intending to play. Who knows, maybe 5.5 really is as good as the shills say. I've been so soured on Wizards of the Coast, I would much rather just use my pile of 5th edition books, or even go back to 3.5, or, as I've said before, I would love to just get everyone together for 2nd edition. Though, finding friends who would actually want to play 2nd edition is, not easy. I'm hoping that eventually more unbiased reviews will come out, and when they do, I'll probably give them a watch out of curiosity. But honestly, I have no interest in 5.5 or anything else that WotC plans to put out in the future because of their disgusting business practices. Silencing alternative opinions is just a step in controlling the story, which is what WotC wants to do. After all, they've lost a lot of players and a lot of money in the last few quarters as more people turn against Wizards of the Coast and more people get disgusted by their business practices. Thanks to YouTubers like myself and many others who have gone out and spread the word about what this company is actually doing behind the scenes. Not only that, but the general normie zeitgeist for Dungeons & Dragons has declined significantly in the last few years. From about a year or two before the pandemic to about a year or so after the pandemic, say 2018 to 2022, there was a real push for Dungeons & Dragons. Somehow, normies discovered the game and for a very short period of time had an interest in it. Whether this was due to streamers, or this was due to Stranger Things, or if this was due to memes on the internet, somehow normies decided to get into D&D. But once the fad kind of ended, they kind of left. They might have still watched certain streamers or certain YouTubers, but for the most part, the normie crowd just moved on to the next fad, which is what the normie crowd does. In fact, the only thing that really annoyed me out of this era was the influx of panels and YouTubers who had only played D&D for about a week or two, but decided they were experts. Newbie know-it-alls are the worst. I'm sure everyone who is watching this has probably stumbled across a newbie know-it-all, either in real life, at a convention, or in the digital space, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Wizards needs 5.5 to succeed, because they want to be able to earn as much money as possible off their products. So monetizing D&D, which they have talked about quite a bit in the last few years, is a priority. And in order to achieve that goal, they need to control the narrative of what people are saying, reduce the amount of negative, and increase the amount of positive. Push for those shills, like you get with, say, Disney products and things like that, because they think that that will lead to more sales. That will reach the normie crowd and expand the market. And if they can get people hooked into 5.5, you can then drag them into the digital space and start nickel and diming them for everything they're worth. Because when all is said and done, that's what WotC wants. Money. On the good side, the tide is turning against Wizards. There's been a lot more dissenting opinion out there, and even if 5.5 is a really great game system, how many of us are really going to go out and buy it when we could just put our money towards other games that we enjoy and other independent creators who deserve our money more than an evil super corporation? Plus, as the normie crowd continues to leave the hobby, Hasbro will no longer get those impulse buys, because those of us that remain are those that love tabletop. And if we turn against Wizards of the Coast, then they have no customers. And when they have no customers, they will be forced to either evolve or go extinct. And honestly, I'd prefer them to go extinct and someone else take the D&D IP and do something good with it. WotC's only counterattack they have available right now is to get a new suck-up shill. They no longer have someone who appeals to normies like Matt Mercer, so they need to make a new one. The problem is, any show that tries to replicate Critical Role just feels like a knockoff of Critical Role. And I'll be honest here, a lot of the D&D streamers I've seen kind of suck. Either they don't play up the roleplay in any kind of fun way, or they're just banal adventures that are designed so the team never has any real threat against them. Of course, you also have the ones where it's just everyone yelling at the same time and it's massive chaos and completely unintelligible, and obviously I don't like those either, because if I'm going to watch you play a game, I want to watch you play a game, not yell at each other for 2 hours with nothing getting achieved. The biggest mistake Wizards made was alienating the long-term fans, something several other companies have done over the years as well. And when you eliminate the core fan group and try to pander to other people who don't care about the product, at best you'll get people who will jump onto a trend or a fad for a very short period of time, like the aforementioned normies, because no one wants to stick with something that's just designed to pander and change every time you complain. People want to stick with something because they're invested in the world. They're invested in the lore, the characters, the gameplay, things like that. And Wizards has lost sight of that. So even those who aren't getting angry about the changes and about the corporate culture will be eventually turned off by the dilution of the lore and simplifying of the gameplay. In their attempt to reach as many people as possible, they're going to lose more people. And the more people they lose, the more they'll tighten their grip on something like D&D Beyond. Because if you can't juice 6 oranges, make sure you get every drop out of 1. Bottom line is, WotC is desperate. They don't have a shill figurehead, they are losing customers, and they are losing money. This means that our fight is winning. And all I ask you, dear listener, is to just vote with your wallet. Don't buy anything from Wizards of the Coast. Let your money go to an independent creator. Let your money go to games that you enjoy, and not games you need to play because it's part of a fad or a zeitgeist, or because you've just been doing it for so long it's habitual. This is an age where indie creators can start to rise up, but they'll only rise up if they have the support of everyone else out there who sees the quality of their product and pushes forward to help them succeed. So please support your favorite indie artist, musician, game designer, etc. As always, say it with me, fight the good fight. Because we lose when we give up. So never give up, and let WotC know you're not playing their games. Until next time, thank you for watching. Please check out my videos on the Wizards of the Coast playlist, or some of my free thoughts on Games Workshop, amongst other things. And until the next video, I'll see you at the tavern.